Hello, everyone. My
So,
name is Supa.
Chandrip
Thank you so much for joining us at KhmerTV. We have a very special guest here today. And Chanlori, can you please introduce our very special guest?
First and foremost,ខ្ញុំឈ្មោះ Chanlori ហើយជាមួយ Pisu
And I'm
and
Supa. Thank you so much for having me.
សូមអរគុណអ្នកទស្សនាទាំងអស់គ្នាដែលបានចូលកម្មវិធីថ្ងៃនេះព្រមទាំងថា mental wellness the theme ហ្នឹងគេហៅstarting over with the Khmer community and all thanks to Michelle. Here's a special guest សូមអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាជួបជាមួយអ្នក project manager នេះឈ្មោះ Michelle ចា Hi Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so
Hi.
much for joining us today.
And hi everyone.
Yes. Thank you everybody for coming together. I know this is a different format where everybody's joining us online and from their own homes. And so it's different. Everything seems different because of this pandemic that we're in. And I wanted to introduce my project, Sharing Tea, Sharing Hope, because we started before the pandemic. We started actually Chinese New Year 2020, and we were live. We were serving tea and sharing tea, Gong Fu style, with anybody and everybody who would like to come. Thank you, everybody. And share what's on their mind. You know, sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger than it is to somebody you know, especially if you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And our listeners, our trained volunteers, would listen, serve you tea, and give you resources, pamphlets, phone numbers, referrals for the Department of Mental Health, the Los Angeles Department of Mental Health. Thank you for sponsoring this project. And, be able to let people know that there is always somebody who can listen. And it helps so much to have somebody listen to whatever problems that we might have. Even though if you can't solve them, at least they're listening. Anyway, then the pandemic happened. I'll leave you to translate that if you can.
Soup, do you want to go ahead and I can chime in after whatever you need me to fill in?
Sure. Okay បាទជំរាបសួរបងប្អូនទាំងអស់គ្នាថ្ងៃនេះយើងមានរឿងសំខាន់មែនទែននៅក្នុងជីវិតរបស់យើងមកពីដែល Michelle បានប្រាប់យើងថាគាត់មានប្រដាប់ប្រដា program មួយគេហៅ T what is the name of the is it T and
sharing
tea
tea,
time, right?
sharing hope.
Sharing
tea,
tea, sharing hope.
Sharing hope.
Right អាហ្នឹងបកប្រែជាភាសាខ្មែរទៅអាហ្នឹងយើងយកទឹកតែនឹងមានភាពមាន hope ដោយជូនបងប្អូនទាំងអស់គ្នាមកពីយើងផឹកទឹកតែទៅយើងមានភាពចង់និយាយរឿងរ៉ាវនៅក្នុងជីវិតរបស់យើងទៅខ្ញុំចង់ប្រាប់ថានៅក្នុងខួរក្បាលរបស់យើងមានភាពសំខាន់មកពីដែល pandemic COVID-19 ចូលមកជីវិតគ្រប់គ្នាបានធ្លាក់ដួលមកពីការងារក៏មិនបានល្អសុខភាពក៏មិនបានល្អមានគ្រួសារខ្លះឈឺច្រើនអ្នកដែរចឹងបានថ្ងៃនេះសំខាន់មែនទែនបានមកចូលមកជួយណែនាំនិយាយរឿងដែលសំខាន់មែនទែននៅក្នុងជីវិតរបស់យើងទាំងអស់គ្នានៅChanlori
ចាហើយបងប្អូនចង់បានរបស់ចង់ដឹងថាសេវាកម្មគាត់ដែលគាត់មានដែលគាត់ជួយឲ្យដល់បងប្អូនគាត់មានសេវាកម្មហ្នឹងយើងអាចហៅមានគាត់មាននៅលើទូរទស្សន៍ right here on the TV screen នៅ TV ដូចទូរស័ព្ទគាត់ផងហើយលេខនិង email គាត់ហើយសេវាកម្មនេះគាត់នឹងជួយបងប្អូនថាមិនមែនថាព្រោះតែCOVID-19 ឲ្យជួយបងប្អូនអត់មានអ្នកណាគេថាយើងកុំអាចគិតស្មុគស្មាញហើយខួរក្បាលយើងឲ្យដូចថាយើងគិតគូរអីច្រើនកុំគិតជឿពេកមានអ្នកគេដែលជួយហើយមានតែគេចង់ស្ដាប់ហើយនឹងចង់មានថាទឹកតែដែលគាត់មាននឹងចង់លើកទឹកចិត្តថាពួកយើងនឹងផឹកតែជាមួយគ្នាពួកយើងនឹងមានការមានអីចង់និយាយក៏បានដែរ ហើយឲ្យពួកយើងទៅ
បាទ
សប្បាយចិត្តហើយកុំឲ្យកាត់រឿងស្មុគស្មាញអី
បាទ
and is there anything else would you like to share Michelle
ខ្ញុំច
Well,
ង់បន្ថែមតិច
originally,
ដែរថា
go ahead
បាទ
sorry,
អ្នកមីង
Miss
Polly.
Polly go ahead her
ចា
Khmer
បា
is
ទ
much better
ចាខ្ញុំចង់thank you ខ្ញុំចង់បន្ថែមទៅលើកម្មវិធី sharing tea sharing hope គាត់ចង់មានកម្មវិធីនេះដើម្បីជួបជុំបងប្អូនទាំងអស់គ្នាដើម្បីហៅថាចែករំលែក
បាទ
ដោះប្ដូរចាយោបល់ទៅវិញទៅមកពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងសុខភាពផ្លូវចិត្តចា
បាទ
ប្រជាជនខ្មែរយើងនៅទីនេះជាទូទៅមិនថានៅក្នុងស្រុកក្តីនៅក្រៅស្រុកក្តីតែងតែមានជួបនៅគេហៅថាជំងឺបាក់ស្បាតដែលធ្លាប់រងកាត់ពីសម័យសង្គ្រាមសម័យប៉ុលពតគេហៅសម័យបល័យពូជសាសន៍ប្រហែលឆ្នាំ3ឆ្នាំ8ខែ20ថ្ងៃចាប្រជាជនយើងដែលបានរងទុក្ខតស៊ូរស់នៅនឹងជំងឺបាក់ស្បាតនេះយ៉ាងវេទនាចាហើយបានមានសញ្ញាផ្សេងៗដែលរករៀនជីវិតប្រចាំថ្ងៃទន្ទឹមនេះនៅមាន COVID-19 មួយទៀតដែលជាបញ្ហាចម្បងហើយដែលធ្វើឲ្យប្រជាជនយើងបងប្អូនក្នុងសហគមន៍ទាំងមូលចាមានបងថែមទៅលើសញ្ញាពីលើមកទៀតចាអញ្ចឹងសូមបងប្អូនកុំអស់សង្ឃឹមមានកម្មវិធី sharing tea sharing hope នេះ
បាទ
ដែលបានឲ្យគេហៅថាបានសັດចោលចាបន្តិចម្ដងចម្ដងនៅអារម្មណ៍ដែលបង្កលើគ្នាទៅវិញដែលគោទុកយូរមកហើយបន្ថែមមកចិនមកចានទៀតណាបានហៅថានឹងរំសាយបន្តិចម្ដងបានចូលរួមក្នុងកម្មវិធី sharing hope sharing tea អរគុណច្រើនចា
បាទ
ចា
អញ្ចឹងអ្នកមីង
thank you
ដែលមានអ្នកមីងបាននិយាយសិនហើយអញ្ចឹងអ្នកមីងជួយណែនាំខ្លួនឯងឲ្យប្រជាជនបានស្ដាប់ថាអ្នកមីងធ្វើការងារខាងអីខ្លះបាទ
ចាខ្ញុំឈ្មោះPhaly ចាខ្ញុំឈ្មោះ Phaly ហ្នឹងបានរួមសហការនៅក្នុងគេហៅថា agent មួយឈ្មោះ Pacific Asian Counseling Services ចាខ្ញុំគឺជា peer specialist ចា Paxla ឬ Paxla ចាគេហៅថាអសរកាត់ហៅថា Pax ចា Pax ចាដែលផ្ដល់សេវាកម្មនេះជូនប្រជាជនខ្មែរយើងសហគមន៍ខ្មែរយើងនៅទីក្រុង Long Beach និយាយទៅ8 area ចានៅ Long Beach ក្តី Bellflower Carson ចាហើយ Lakewood 8 area នៅក្នុងទីក្រុង LA យើងនេះចា
បាទ All right, so Miss Polly just introduced herself. She is from PAX, which stands for Pacific Asian Counseling Services. They have about 8 locations throughout the cities, including Long Beach and Lakewood, and they do services involving mental health. And they provide different programs to help with assisting the citizens that have problems with their mental health and finding access and the type of fundings needed to help them with their issues. So thank you so much, Miss Polly, for that introduction.
yes
Alright.
and we can go back to what she mentioned earlier too about Michelle and Netming Polly she was saying that I'm just going to make it brief was that the purpose of your project sharing this tea hope is for throughout this whole pandemic and because in the Cambodian community there is a lot of like you said there's stigma and we're like on religion we were taught not to express and we kept it bottled up inside so with the sharing tea purpose is that we can drink and help and talk and have someone to relieve and express and all the above to have someone there for you. You're not there alone.
Absolutely.
And, just someone there is going to be there for you. And with the services that was provided by Michelle through her project and also provided from PAC LA, there's, mental health is something serious that in our community we don't talk about. And especially they suffer from PTSD through the Khmer Rouge, meaning the genocide. So this is something that she's encouraging everyone to go ahead and speak up and there's someone out there for you. That's what she mentioned earlier. So I'm just translating it back to those who are non-speaking Khmer viewers.
Exactly. Thank you so much,
Thank
Chanlori.
you.
And I'd like to also introduce our fifth panel member, Miss Mealy. Can you please introduce yourself?
Just introduce yourself, baby.
My name's Maylee. I am born here in America, so my Khmer is not very good.
Same
And
here.
I'm I'm honored to be here on the panel to talk about mental health because I feel that I share a very unique aspect of understanding what mental health is, and also what my parents went through. So,
Right.
you know, both of my parents, they were in the Khmer Rouge. Luckily, they survived. They have terrible, ferocious stories of things that happened during that time that I still keep with me to this day. And I really, really respect them for what they went through. And as I got older, I got very curious as to what they went through. I've been asking them more details. And, to ask them about these details, it's very traumatic for them. They have to relive the details. They have to tell me, exactly what happened. And in reality, I think it's something that they're all trying to forget. So, here in America, I took over my parents' shop, DK's Donuts and Bakery, and I have a delivery-only concept called Donut Princess LA, and I'm hoping to create a legacy for myself. My uncle, his name is Uncle Ted Noi. Many Cambodians know him. He is a pretty interesting character, and he's actually the one who sponsored hundreds of Cambodian refugees to come over here and taught them how to make donuts and to create the system so that when Cambodian people came here and they didn't have an education, they didn't know, 1, 2, 3 apples, whatever, they can learn how to bake and really support their families when they came here with literally nothing. So I'm so happy here and to share my story with you guys.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh
we
my
really
God,
appreciate you.
I'm here.
I'm so
Uncle
happy.
Ted's niece is in the house.
And I would love to try some of your donuts very soon.
Thank you. We're open 24 hours, so come by anytime.
Absolutely. We'll definitely drop in.
We watched the document, and I'm a fan of your uncles, and I saw you brief in the document. That was awesome. So when I saw it, I'm like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to act. Okay, breathe in.
The Donut King film has all of my the Donut King film has all of my relatives in there. My mom's in there, my auntie's in there, my uncles are in there, and it's a really, really awesome documentary. If you guys haven't seen it, it's called The Donut King Film. You can watch it on Amazon Prime now, Apple TV, and Google Play. And I really, really recommend you watch it with your parents because it will give you a totally different perspective of how they got here and help you understand your own history.
I'm definitely gonna tune in, and thank you so much for introducing yourself. បាទបងប្អូនអរមានកូនក្មួយ is it ក្មួយលោកតា Ted ដែលជា Donut King ទៅគាត់មានឱកាសយកការងារខាងឪពុកម្ដាយរបស់គាត់ទៅគាត់ឥឡូវគាត់គ្រប់គ្រង store donut ឥឡូវគាត់មានsome coming ទៅថ្ងៃមុខមកពីគាត់រៀនពីប្រវត្តិឪពុកម្ដាយរបស់គាត់សូមអរគុណច្រើនមីលីដែលបានជួយណែនាំប្រាប់ជាខ្លួនជាអ្នកណាបាទសូមអរគុណច្រើន
ចាហើយដូចទីខ្ញុំដែរគាត់កើតស្រុកនេះពួកខ្ញុំក៏ពិតមិនមែនបានកើតនៅស្រុកខ្មែរទេពួកខ្ញុំកើតនៅស្រុកអាមេរិកនេះប៉ុន្តែព្រោះតែរឿងរ៉ាវដែលពុកម្ដាយយើងដែរគាត់បានឆ្លងគឺសម័យអពោតហ្នឹងពួកយើងស្ដាប់ឮរឿងរបស់គាត់បានគាត់ប្រាប់ពួកយើងចិត្តទៅក្នុងចិត្តថាអូពួកយើងសំណាងកើតនៅស្រុកនេះប៉ុន្តែគាត់វិញគាត់បានឆ្លងការបំបាក់មែនទែនហើយរំមកដល់ស្រុកនេះពួកយើងខ្លះក្មេងសម័យឥឡូវគេអត់យល់ដឹងថាពុកម្ដាយធ្វើបំបាក់ការបំបាក់យ៉ាងណាបានមកដល់ស្រុកអាមេរិកប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំកើតស្រុកនេះប៉ុន្តែនៅខំនិយាយដូចមេលីដែរប៉ុន្តែអត់សូវច្បាស់អត់សូវល្អហើយខ្ញុំប៉ុន្តែពួកខ្ញុំនឹងខំនិយាយប៉ុន្តែដូចរឿងរ៉ាវដូចមេលីចឹងពុកម្ដាយខ្ញុំពេលគាត់ឆ្លងកាត់សម័យពលពតនឹងពេលគាត់មកគាត់ការលំបាកណាស់យ៉ាងណាខ្ញុំមិនសូវដឹងទេមកពីគាត់ទុកក្នុងចិត្តតើពួកខ្ញុំសួរគាត់រួចតែចង់ដឹងបានគាត់និយាយប្រាប់ប៉ុន្តែចំណាយគាត់មិនចង់និយាយប្រាប់ក៏នៅភ័យខ្លាចអត់ហ៊ានណានៅគិតថាគាត់ចំណាដេកយប់ឡើងគាត់យល់អាក្រក់ យល់សពអាក្រក់ហើយយល់សពអាក្រក់ហ្នឹងចំណាគាត់អត់មានអ្នកណាគេនិយាយជាមួយហើយអត់ចេះបើកចិត្តហើយថាហើយបើកចិត្តដូចទៅបើកនិយាយពីរឿងរ៉ាវហ្នឹងឲ្យអ្នកណាគេស្ដាប់បានដឹងថាយល់គាត់កើតរឿងរ៉ាវហ្នឹងមិនចេះមានតែគាត់នឹងទុកក្នុងចិត្តហ្នឹងហើយចំណាដេកយំចំណាគាត់អត់ហ៊ាននិយាយភ័យខ្លាច And pretty much I'm saying translating back I agree with Madly we were born here and raised in America our Cambodia is not that well but we do have the similar stories that our parents shared with us that all the rough ness that they've been through the war for us to be blessed and lucky that we were born here and hearing their story it just breaks our heart but they're survivor they're strong but at the end of the day we don't know still what's going on in their head because they don't share it they just so they're so strong and they keep it to themselves they don't really we were all taught not to even talk about it it felt like it was a taboo they don't know where to go get the service resources or fall back or go to somewhere to get some help so now that during this time there is resources and services out there that's willing to help them សូមអ្នកមីង Phaly សូមជួយប្រាប់បងប្អូនយើងចង់មានសេវាកម្មកន្លែងណាខ្លះបានពួកគាត់បានទៅអាចសូមជួយពីកន្លែង Pack LA ឬទៅ any other resource
ចាពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងបញ្ហាទាំងនេះដូចថាប្រជាជនយើងដែលមានបទពិសោធន៍នៃការឈឺចាប់ពីជំងឺបាក់ស្បាតហ្នឹងគាត់មិនដែលដូចថាអត់ហ៊ាននិយាយប្រាប់ដូចថាទៅនឹងសម្រាប់ខ្មែរយើងមានរឿងអីក្នុងចិត្តតែលាក់ទុកចាអត់តែហ៊ាននិយាយដូចថាវប្បធម៌ខ្មែរយើងផងដែរដូចថាមានអីអត់និយាយចេញនេះចាតែគេដូចថារើសអើងទី1គាត់និយាយទៅមានគេរិះគន់ទី2ចឹងណាซึ่งមិនអាចគាត់ចិត្តទៅលាក់ទុកមិនហ៊ាននិយាយចានិយាយទៅ feel like shame ណាហ៎ដែលធ្វើឲ្យគេ stigma ដែលអូនមិននិយាយបានហើយប៉ុន្តែទង្វើនៃការជៀសវាងមិននិយាយនេះបណ្ដាលឲ្យមានអាការៈអត់ទៅហ្នឹងវាជាសញ្ញាមួយដែលជាតែរុករៀនចាពីភាពផ្លូវចិត្តគាត់ឡើងកាន់តែដុនដាប់ទៅដែលមានការព្យាបាលឲ្យបានតាមពេលចាអញ្ចឹងទៅបើសិនជាគាត់មិនបានដែលរៀនយូរទៅវារាំងបង្ការធ្វើឲ្យគាត់មិនហ៊ានទៅរកការព្យាបាលអញ្ចឹងអញ្ចឹងទៅសេវាកម្មមាននៅផាកដែលមានអាស័យដ្ឋាននៅផ្លូវលេខ35គត់ផ្លូវ Atlantic Long Beach California 90807ចាហើយនៅលេខ telephone ចា562 424 1886នៅទីក្រុង Long Beach ចាសូមអរគុណ
ចាអរគុណ
much mean speaking of everything that's been going on as myself being born in California being born Thai Khmer American growing up I was within several different cultures and learning the different languages and trying to understand both sides because both cultures had come from different experiences and hearing my dad's side of the story, hearing the Khmer Rouge and what he's been through, I started to work in the mental health field. So I started working as a behavior interventionist for a while. I did that for about 2 to 3 years and eventually switched over to the Harbor Regional Center and got to work very closely with a lot of Asian American families and trying to understand the household and what they were going through. And a lot of the time they were locked into their minds. And I had to kind of push my way in a more I had to use art to get through to them. So I had them draw pictures or I had them talk about it via music or they would play some of the music that they liked and loved before the Khmer Rouge came into and, affected their way of thinking. And that was their comfort. So if they were able to find comfort within the genocide itself, I was like, this is my way in. And which is why within the past probably 1 or 2 years, I became a Cambodian American artist. I started singing in Khmer. And I wrote songs that were related to the genocide. And this was my way of getting in. And I felt like it was a softer approach because music is a way of healing, And for me, it kind of started to really affect me because I started to really dig deeper into the history. And just sitting there hearing my dad talk about how, there was one moment where he had a beautiful horse and the horse was one of his most precious animal, and he told me that they took his horse and they slaughtered his horse right in front of him, and he was able to share that with me. I get a little teary-eyed when I hear about this, but it helped me as a person and as his son understand, like, how did you get through that? How did you overcome those mental health issues? And it was funny because living in America, you are privileged, so you have a lot of things given to you without having to work so hard for it. Like, I was able to go to school, I was able to work and meet people, and I lost a sense of who I was for a while. I became Americanized. But throughout the years, I started to experience the mental health issue part. I started to fall. Like, I can share this personally because I was able to seek a therapist and get through this whole ordeal during the quarantine. In 2020, I had a lot of time on my hand. I was working from home, and I had a lot of moment to myself. I was thinking a lot, because I was always the kind of person that was on the move. I was always moving and moving and moving. So when the world puts everything on pause, you don't know how to handle the kind of trauma you've had as a kid. So I can share this information and I'm okay with it. But when I was younger, I was molested in elementary school. And that ordeal came back really strong. And when it came back and hit me, I was like, wait, I was damaged. I was a damaged child. Like, someone took my innocence away, And it was heartbreaking. I was breaking apart. I was falling into my own demise. I didn't seek help. In July of last year, I drove down to Utah and I stood on top of a mountain and I almost jumped, and it was one of probably the hardest thing in my life to experience. And um, it was life changing for me. It was. I didn't expect myself to get to, because I work in the mental health field, and I thought I had the skills to overcome those kind of feelings. And my way out was writing music, and I wasn't even wanting to write anymore. I just fell deep and dark into the hands of the darkness that I was falling into. So in July of 2020, I stood on top of a mountain in Utah, and I almost took a step forward and I almost jumped. I almost jumped off the cliff. And but divine intervention came in, and it wasn't my time. This beautiful eagle came surrounding the mountain, and it just squealed and squeaked, and I woke out of it. And I I get really emotional talking about it because I couldn't believe I was gonna go to that route. And when I came home, I just kind of sat in my bed and I said, I need help. For someone to admit that they need help, it's the first step to moving forward with the trauma that you've experienced. And that's why sharing my story was so important, because a lot of people lock their self inside and don't share anything, and they end up falling and falling where there was no way out again. And I seeked, I accessed my insurance, my health insurance. I was able to get a therapist, even though it was through via Telegram or via Zoom. I was able to have someone hear me out. I was ashamed, I was embarrassed. I didn't want to tell anybody what happened to me as a 5-year old, who was assaulted, because I was embarrassed, because I I blocked it for so long, and I didn't realize how much it had affected me as I got older. And I'm 34 now, and it still came up, thinking that you've healed yourself. But in reality, it was still sitting there at the pit of my stomach because I kept running and running and running. But when quarantine came in, I knew it was going to come back, and it came back so strong. But I'm able to stand here today and talk about this and help others who are locked inside their own thoughts come out of it too, because it is important to seek help, and help is out there. I don't mind people judging me anymore. I'm growing as a person, and there's so much help out there. The suicide line was there. I called it and I spoke with someone, and I just cried for hours and hours thinking, why did it happen to me? And it didn't happen to, you know, to bad people, right? I just started to question my life. What did I do wrong? I was just 5 years old, running to go to the bathroom, you know, and getting told by the person who had assaulted me that they were going to kill me if I told anybody about it. So can you imagine a 5-year old having to talk about that kind of thing, you know? So I was a a victim, and I grew from it, and I was able to rise now and talk to people about it. And I feel like now I can put it into my music, and I feel like with me as an artist and as a advocate for mental health, that it's okay to talk about things, you know. And like I said, people are gonna say things, and it's okay, because now that it's on the outside and people hear you, it's better than letting it stay in here and locked inside for so long, you know. And that is my story with the mental health issues.
Thank
So
you for sharing. I'm sorry that
thank
Yeah,
happened.
you.
But you know we're
Thank
here
you.
for you.
absolutely.
Like Michelle
Yeah,
said, there's always
absolutely.
someone to contact.
Right.
And I'm here, and Ming Pali for hearing it. You almost make me
Yeah, yeah,
cry. I was
yeah.
trying not to cry because, I'm trying to
Yeah.
stay strong here.
Yeah,
Look
yeah.
me, I'm
You know,
like,
you
and
I know, I
I can
know.
understand from all of us here, everyone experienced something, and at the end of the day, we all have someone. Don't feel like you're alone.
Right.
Like, like, like bong, like soup គាត់ថាគាត់គិតជីវិតគាត់ដូចចង់ព្រោះតែរឿងហេតុហាវអីដែលកើតនៅក្នុងជីវិតគាត់គិតទៅគាត់ថាគាត់ចង់សម្លាប់ខ្លួនសង្គមយើងមកពីសង្គមខ្មែរយើងអត់ចេះថាចែករំលែកដូចមីងផាលីគាត់ថាពួកយើងអត់ចេះមានទុកអីពេលខឹងអីខ្លាចអីពួកយើងខ្មាស់គេព្រោះតែខ្លាច like she said a shame
Hmm.
ហើយខ្លាចគេឲ្យបរៀនកូនចៅថាកុំនិយាយអីទុកនៅស្ងៀមអត់ដែលចេះនិយាយចេញរត់ទៅប្រាប់អ្នកណាគេយើងខ្លាចយើងទុកនៅក្នុងចិត្តរហូតប៉ុន្តែពេលផ្ទុះចេញមកដូចកើតចឹងឯងយើងគិតនឹងគិតផ្លូវខាងអាក្រក់ហើយនឹងខ្លាច
Hmm.
ទុករហូត so pretty much what I was saying was that I felt like in a camp in Khmer society, not just Khmer, I think in the Asian community, that
Yeah,
Right.
Asian society.
it's the stigma and the taboo. It's don't talk about your feelings, don't talk about this. We're
Right.
ashamed,
Right.
we're embarrassed. Somebody's gonna
Right.
gossip about you, "Kaya yay down," and we were taught just to keep it in and stay quiet, don't want any problem or anything. But that problem will like you're gonna suffer within. So
Right.
there's no way
And
you can talk about it. It's gonna be stuck
like
inside.
right. And
So
at that point I was like, I started to realize you know, I didn't care that people were judging me or telling me I was this and that. I survived because I spoke about it. You know, I almost jumped. It was literally just seconds away from not being on this earth anymore. You know, and it's then you realize at the end of the day, are they gonna hold? Is someone gonna go jump with you? Absolutely not. You know, and that's why when I came back home, I was gonna seek help, and I was able to get the correct and the kind of help I needed to help get me back on my feet and mentally stable again. You know, everyone in the world, you can be the most perfect person, but we all suffer in our own ways, either through school, through family trauma, through inner trauma, through diagnosis that you don't know you have. You know, and that's why it was so important for me to come back and say I need help, because I didn't care no more, because I would rather be alive and have people judge me than be gone, because if I left this earth, I would be selfish and I'll leave my parents, I'll leave my family behind, I'll leave people I love. And people who actually love you, they're going to be the ones suffering too, right? If you leave, because they need you just as much as you need them, you know
Yeah.
and I have a new mentality on life now. I focus on the goals, and I focus on the dreams and what makes me happy, and just having a
yeah,
cup of tea every day makes me happy. And I feel like we all have some kind of story, and my story might be a little bit more severe, but imagine your mom and dad that had to escape the Khmer Rouge and run through the fields with all the bombs sitting in the grassy areas and not knowing what you're going to step on. you know it's horrible what they've been through. And for me to start to dig deeper into the history of it, I was really shocked, and I started really learning the language. Started really learning how to speak Khmer, because the culture is beautiful. Every culture is beautiful, and I think it takes a lot of effort for the younger generation like ourselves to really dig deeper and really try to just sit down and listen to your mom and dad, you know, hear them out. They want you to hear, but they just don't know how to tell you. Because when I released the song about the Khmer Rouge, my parents were actually really excited and happy that I was able to tell my story and explain that I don't understand what you guys really went through, but I'm acknowledging it, right? So when you acknowledge what they've been through, they know that they have your support, right? And just let
Right.
them know, like, I'm here, listen to me, hear me out. I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to understand what you've been through. And once they get that off of their chest, imagine the growth, imagine the happiness that will actually start coming in. They can really start to live their life the way they want to. And that's what I've really
Right.
learned, you know?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, and thank you for, not doing that. And you're strong and you're amazing. Thank you, and thank you for still
Thank
being
you
here
so
with us.
much. Thank
Yes, and
you.
I would love to hear more experience from,
Yeah.
Mei Lee and Ming Polly. So, what do you think about this, Mei Lee? How do you feel? You were also born here like us. How do you feel about that? And what do you hear from your parents? And what do you do to try to understand them?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I feel like when you're a lot younger and you're here born in America, you don't really think that you don't really make sense of it first. You're not really interested. Like my mom, like there were certain situations where she would get triggered and she would go on this whole thing about what she went through. And I think it was
Right,
until I got a little bit older where I was like, it really, really hit me. I was like, oh my God, like you actually like lived through all these things. Like you said, getting thrown on top of the mountain, trying to go, there's bombs, dead bodies everywhere, being like so hungry, like for us, like
you're
when we
starving.
try to eat rice. Yeah. When we
Mm,
have, like when I was growing up and there was like a little bit of rice left, my grandma, my mom, no, you got to finish all that rice.
Right.
And
Absolutely. I
right.
like
remember that.
it's so
Like there's
simple,
hungry
but
people out
like
there.
Yes.
yeah, and like they experience real like malnourishment. Like whatever
Right.
that they had to go through, they had just very little. My mom, she tells me stories of like my grandpa, her dad worked in like the fishing area and he would hide some fish underneath his cot and tell his kids,
Right.
hey, when you're hungry in the middle of the night, come find me, I have it hiding here. Without like little things like that, you know they might not have survived. Like and if they were caught, they would have been killed too. There's another story my mom tells me. She said, they were trying to escape. They were out of cans of rice, and her and her brother, who unfortunately passed away during the Khmer Rouge, they went
Right.
like 20 kilometers by foot going through to find this bamboo. Like, okay, there was no money at that time, so they were like, okay, we can go get that bamboo, we can trade somebody for rice. And when they got to the bamboo fields, they're all gone, everything was cut. Like, can
Right.
you just imagine, like, getting 20 kilometers on foot, getting there, there's nothing there. And she's like, she told me she went to, this Ming's house. She got down on her knees. She said, she prayed, please, Ming, like, I'll do anything. Like, my family is gonna die. Like, I will work for you.
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
you need. I will take your old rice. Do you have anything? My mom still to this day talks about this Ming who helped her. She worked at
Right.
this Ming's house for like 3 days. She got enough to bring back to the family, and they were able to carry on to the next stop. I mean, there are so many things, like you said, like we're so privileged here to have in America. We have so much. Like, even the littlest things, like we can never take it for granted. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy that they, not only did they survive, but when they got to America too, like it's not even that easy to make money in America, like when you don't know how to speak English. So I'm
Right.
really
Right.
glad that they were able to kind of figure it out. And what they did was they worked together as a family to save
Right.
money, work together. Okay, and then they're gonna go get the donut shop, because donut shops were like what Cambodians did at the time. And it's just like, for me, like hearing these stories, I definitely have what I now know as generational trauma, which is,
Right.
they passed it down to you through stories. That's literally all we have. We don't have,
Yeah.
artifacts of our great grandparents. Like, that's all lost. All we have is their
Exactly.
stories. So,
Right.
when you listen to these stories, this generational trauma that I'm referring to, they don't mean to give it to you, but when you hear it, it really you have to think like, wow, my parents went through this. And, I started to notice like little habits of my parents. Like, for example,
Right.
if I really liked like this one type of noodles, my mom would go and buy like 5 cases of them and put it
Oh
away,
my God.
like,
I can
you
understand that.
know, and like it makes sense now, because at first you're like, oh mom, like I don't really want like all this noodle. I only want a little. She's, they see like, oh, like you really like this, like we'll just have it in case. And like, especially at the start of the
Right.
pandemic, yes, my mom was one of those people getting the rice, getting the toilet paper. This is
My
like
mom is
traumatic
with
for
your
them.
mom.
I'm
They're
doing
all
mean,
that
talking.
too.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Like you can start to see like the hoarder like come out, and it's because, well, when you live through a time where one day you get up and like your whole world changes, it kind of makes sense that how your mom or your dad acts. So you have to
right.
really understand, like, a lot of the times, like, since we're so privileged, we try to make our parents wrong, and we should
Right.
not do that. We should not do that at all. But you don't really know about this. You have to kind of go through it and really understand what they had to go through to get here
Right.
and for you to get here. And I
Yes.
think to also add to that, like, when I was getting older and I went to college, my parents sent me to like the best schools. Like I went to like private Catholic high school. I wasn't even Catholic.
Wow.
I'm Buddhist, but they're like, this has the best education. I went to UCSD. They wanted to make sure I got the best education so I could have the tools and
Right.
have the things that they never had. I don't think that
Right.
people
Yeah.
in my generation really understand how hard they had to work to get us there. I talked to, and I now know about, like, I have a little sister who's 10, and like Gen Z is like, they're going to be even more far removed from this. So,
Right.
we have to keep these stories alive, and we have to keep these lessons alive. But in terms of my own personal mental health, like you said, like, we don't talk about it, like, I remember being as a kid, and like, if I was crying, you're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to show any emotion. You have to be strong. Like, be strong is like trigger words for me, because it just reminds
Right.
me of how much I had to suppress all of my feelings and how I
Right.
felt. And, growing up, I know, like, there's a lot of Dichu Cambodians, and Cambodian I just know a little bit of. But how do you even communicate to your parents on how you feel if you're
Right.
not allowed to really feel those feelings in the first place? So
Right.
who do you
Right.
talk to? And also growing up in America and growing up where I lived, I live in West LA, and there were no Asians around me. I was always different. I was bullied. I
Right.
was, they never seen an Asian girl like me. They called me Asian girl at school, like, because there's no other Asians. And then going to UCSD, and I was like, oh wow, there's a lot of Asians here in California. But yeah, on my personal note, it really took me some time to open up and be vulnerable, and whether that be
Right.
with a friend or doing it through a program, help is always there. And I'm so happy that this
Right.
program exists for people. But it really takes that step to be like, I will be vulnerable with you. I will tell my
Right.
story, because
Right.
they're so used to keeping quiet, because that's just, keep quiet, like no trouble. Like that's just kind of how the culture is. So
Right.
I'm, it's kind of it. Times are changing, and luckily with the internet and with programs like this, like there's more education that's accessible for people. But
Right.
it all starts at home. It all starts at home, and it all starts with changing the fact that it should be okay to talk about feelings. It should be okay to give not only your kids or your parents the space to express
Right.
themselves in the way they know how.
Right. Right.
Oftentimes that's missing. That doesn't exist at all. So
I mean,
Yeah.
just to hear your
And
story
I
so
agree
vivid,
with
you know,
you.
amazing. I
Yes.
mean, I am just very impressed by your story and how vivid you were able to tell your story. And I realized how much you've listened to your parents, you know, and it really impresses me about how you've really educated yourself about what was going through during your life and what your parents went through. Because we all have different stories, but there is a certain connection
yeah.
in all of it, you know. And as a second generation American-born Cambodians here in the States, you know, it's nice to hear another fellow Cambodian understand the feeling of actually not knowing but wanting to know, you know? And I had
Yes.
another experience like recently where I
We
had a
all
TV
can
show
relate.
approach me, you know, and they came to me and they were like, we want to do a story about your parents and the genocide. And I was excited. I was like, oh, this is so cool. We're going to be on TV, right? And I had to sit down with my parents. I'm like, hey, guys, like, what do you think about being on TV? And they were like, no, 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 no. I said, oh, they were just not they didn't want to do it, and I said, you know what, I had to respect my parents, and I was like, it's okay, you know, it's okay if you don't want to be on I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to respect you, you know. And now you know the deeper rooted why is so deeply rooted how they were feeling, that they didn't care to want to share it, right? So we had to be intricate, because I'll talk about something and they'll be okay with it, but then there's certain topics that will trigger a memory and they're going to start crying, you know.
Yeah, the
So it is,
flashback, the trauma.
yeah, it's
It hurts.
unbelievable.
They don't want to talk about it because then, it just brings back bad memory. My mom says it's a
Right,
bad nightmare. She don't like to talk about it, but I ask her all the time.
right,
So I hear it all the time, but then, I still ask because I want to learn. I want to know. And sometimes I might be my own mom therapist, So I was like, Mom, I'm here for you.
yeah,
I love you. I can understand you as much as I can help you as much, but my help is to show you my love, support, and I'm all ears for
right,
you. And
yeah,
sometimes they don't
Yeah.
show a lot of affection either. They can, Khmer,
No.
the Khmer community, they are not very affectionate. They don't show a lot of emotions. They're just more like, they don't want no. They're just quiet to themselves, and they're just
you know,
afraid. They're
yeah,
so with all this fear coming back through the trauma and the PTSD or anything that happened to them in the past. They're not trying to forget it. It's just more like they're trying to not let it happen again. It
right.
just keeps coming, and they just don't know
I
how to
mean,
express it you know
yeah, and you know, speaking of like, you know, getting access to the program, we do have a lot of amazing programs out there,
the
right?
resources.
The
Yeah.
resources are amazing, but you know what, I realize that our parents and our generation is scared to seek that help because they're scared of the authority, right? They're scared of being
Yeah.
deported back. There's like a stigma between that too. They're like, oh no, if I seek help they might deport me back, or they dig up information and they feel scared about that too. So and that's why a lot of them
Yeah.
like, no, no, I don't need the help, you know. And those are the little details that we forget about, is that yes, the help might be amazing, but they have fear of, you know, going to someone and not having someone understand, and they're like, oh no, I don't want to get deported, I don't want to seek that help. I'm like, no, no, they're not going to do
Yes.
nothing. So we really have to go deeper and explain the program and the resources, because that's one fear that I realized working in the Harbor Regional Center, was that, oh no, no, I don't want to do that program, I don't want anyone to know anything. I'm like, oh. So they're like, I don't want to get deported. That was the number one keyword that kept coming up, because they were scared of the current issues right now, maintaining about the government and getting deported, because that was an issue for a very long time, you know. And
Yes.
now you
Yeah.
Because
see
they're
the
new here.
stigma
They
in
don't know
that.
how to
Yeah,
survive in
they
different
don't know
environment.
how.
This is a new country for them, coming from a broken country to here. And like Mei Lee said, they struggle. So finally, they got to where they're at now. They're just afraid to going back to that. But I do want to ask
Right.
Ming Pali because Ming ខ្ញុំមានសំណួរជាមួយ Ming ខ្ញុំសុំសួរជំនួសថា Ming ពេលធ្វើការខាង Pack LA ហ្នឹង Ming បានមានអ្នកខ្លះគេមកពេលសួរមីងគេមកសុំជួយអីគេសួរអីវិញមីងខ្លះហើយមីងសុំជួយណែនាំថាម៉េចពួកយើងឡៃយាយព្រឿងថាព្រឿង mental health សុំមីងជួយបកប្រែឲ្យមីងជួយប្រាប់អ្នកទស្សនាទាំងអស់គ្នាអឺក៏ថាកុំខ្លាចបើចង់មានកន្លែងសេវាកម្មខ្លះបាទអាចជួយបងប្អូនទាំងអស់គ្នាហើយឲ្យពួកគាត់បើចង់ចែករំលែកអីឲ្យមកនិយាយជាមួយមិនកុំឲ្យទុកក្នុងចិត្តពេក
But
ចាខ្ញុំចង់មិនឲ្យខ្ញុំបានចង់ណែនាំពីតើមានកម្មវិធីអីខ្លះនៅ Park LA ខ្ញុំច
ចា
ង់ចារៀបរាប់ តិចពីរឿងបទពិសោធន៍របស់ខ្ញុំថែមបន្តិច it resonate to Melly, right? Melly, your parent.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. In Khmer, I'm not really quite grown up yet, but I still remember part of that. And
Yeah.
but the thing like impacted to my life experience when after the Khmer was over, but we still have civil war in the country. And
Right.
in that time when I was about 7 years old after Khmer, and yeah, we have a lot of bomb too. You know,
Right.
Khmer
Yeah.
still not done. They still sneak in and put a bomb here and there, and have a lot of firework of the fire in the factory and the market.
Right.
You know, it was terrifying for me. And sometimes when I just lay down under the cave and watching the bullet flew over our head, you know,
Yeah.
and I feel so frightened and feel scared. I never have a good sleep at all.
Right.
And my mom was so scared. She have
Yeah.
the sign was so scared and fear all the time. Sometimes she just heard the gun, and then she pull me run away here and there, and then it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I adapt all that feeling that made
Right.
me feel confusing, made me feel not safe.
Right.
And also growing up in the family that we have a lot of fear, and also I'm the youngest, and
Right.
we have a lot of fear, a lot of worry, anxiety too. In that time, and then I feel a lot of not safe for my life, and then start to have
Yes.
thinking and worry too, because of
Right.
that the event that impacted to our
Right.
family, and then I feel it not good enough. Yeah, and
Right.
then
Do you feel
we
like
never
it comes
thought.
up a lot? Yeah.
Yeah, in the past I always have feel that, and I feel like, oh,
Yeah.
what's wrong with me? What's going on to
So how
me?
do
I feel like why I feel
so
like not in balance. Why I feel like a lot of
oh
things go into my feeling all the time.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
right, um and then
so how
what
did
do
your
you
kid
want to
help
say?
me? So how did your kid help me? How were
You
you
know, in that
able
time, in I carry on that feeling, that symptom all the time. But in at the time when I was in Cambodia, but we don't have that services, we don't have the
Okay.
program, and I don't know
Right.
where to tell. I don't know who to get help, and I just want to say this is the quality of life. This is what like my say bom nền chi vết. How can I get
Right.
there?
Chà,
You know, I just say how can I get bom nền chi vết? I have
ôi
Right.
getting
prayingវាស្នាគេ
this
យើងចឹង
related to psychiatrist យ៉ាបំណិន
Right.
លេខ
Right.
ការប៉ិនប្រសពនៃការដឹកនាំជីវិតណាយ៉ាដូចថា
ចា
Right.
how I don't have that skill. I just feel like boy how can I can
Yeah.
get my life getting better, but because I do not have this skill with me, I just keep worrying and thinking and worry about my
Right.
future life all the time, and the times when I just start growing up. And then I do
Right.
not know there are the worrying and pile up in my brain and my feeling all the times,
Right. Right.
and then
Right.
ended up with me like have poor sleeping and feel so worried about future life, and then
Right.
um
Right.
and then I feel like, oh, I don't have not good enough, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I feel like, okay, have never thought the information that I really need to know about my value, about my worthy,
Right.
something like that. Then I feel like less than.
Right.
Um,
ចា
yeah, and then when I been here in America, it more depression pile up because we start to learn everything. We cannot speak English. We don't know where to find a job, and also we do not support enough.
Right.
And also like we can survive over here, and also one part thinking about supporting the relative in
Right.
Cambodia too. So it's
Right.
more thing that made me more thinking again, and
Right.
then I decided to get divorced when I have one baby. I thought like
Right.
I cannot walking with this way, you know. I don't see the hope, but I keep continue going through with that. Then I say,
Right.
okay, I start to walking different way. So how see how far I can go by myself.
Right. Right.
And then oh my goodness, more chaos. be alone and a single mom, and also my
Right.
mom staying with me too, and my mom's like bios or culture, she cannot adapt things new. I'm in the twin
Mhm.
pressure between culture in America that how to raise my daughter, and also how
Right.
to get get to know to along about understanding about the culture over here too. And then I feel like a lot of pressure that build up to me more. And then I feel something wrong with me, and I feel I cannot let this thing, get into my life no more. How can I
Right.
support my
Right.
my daughter if I feel like they? And then one day I met one counselor at Parks, and then I say, I used to hear about counselor, but I never know what is it about. How can it help me? And then I run after her, like chase after her. She didn't even know who I am.
Yeah.
I chase after her. Hey, stop! I want to talk to you. Her name is Hiển. He's a therapist at Parks, and she asked me, "What's going on, Polly?" I want to enroll for the program.
Right.
And I see what's going on. I just want to get help. I think it's something that I can't let this one go through with my life no more.
Right.
If I gonna be like that, I cannot be survive and also can support my daughter. I want my daughter to
Right.
be different with me. I want to
Right.
be ability to have ability to support my daughter. So, and then I can enroll for the park, and then I'm working so hard, yet day and night to get
Definitely.
improved.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
proud
Yeah.
of you, Ming. You
I'm
actually,
so
want to
proud.
help and get help. And, a lot of people
Yeah.
want to do it, but thank you. You wanted to get help and you got help. Before we go ahead and say our goodbyes to our viewers, I want to thank you to Ming Polly, who is part of PAC, and then hearing her story from being surviving and gone through that. And Mei Lee, who's her family, has been generation from Uncle Ted. And thank you, Soup, for always chiming in and sharing your amazing story. And Michelle, thank you for your project. I need everyone here to go ahead and let our viewers know what message do you have for them. Starting with Michelle, and we can go to Mei Ling, Ming, Polly, and Soup. You can go ahead and close, and we can say goodbye to our view because our time is limited. We love to enjoy. Maybe next time we'll
Yes.
have another episode about mental health. But go ahead, Michelle. Any message for our viewers?
Thank you, Chanlori. Thank you to everybody who shared a very personal story. I can relate, and I had shared some of the story in previous episodes, but I wanted to emphasize that the help is out there, and if people can go log on to www.inspiration.cafe, put your email, your name, and your address, we will send you a information in Khmer and English, how you can find resources in Los Angeles County. We'll also send you samples of tea so that you can drink tea with us at our next Sharing Tea, Sharing Hope, and we'll definitely include samples from the beautiful tea that Soup is sharing.
Yes, I can't wait
But
to share more
also,
information.
yes, yes. Also, if you fill out the questionnaire, we will put you in a lottery for a chance to win $100 gift card. So again, it's so that we can help share and spread the hope, help share and spread tea, and let people know that we want to hear from you. There's no shame in asking for help right now. It's very interesting because when I started this project, people were shy about telling their story, but we still got to have good conversations. And now, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of the time in our hometown where people are suffering, where, you know, people have been cooped up for so long that we're having mental health breakdowns. I have a
Hmm.
friend who, at 29 years old, committed suicide. And I've family COVID. So I do feel a lot of stress. I feel sadness. I feel anxiety, and I need to let people know, and it so helps me to just share that. It's because it's also helps me. So I just want people to I want people to understand that there's somebody who will listen to you and without judgment. So please, yes, uh, talk to your friends, talk to your relatives, ask them, please, this is really going through my mind right now. Can I just tell you this? Don't say anything yet. Just hear me out. And you'll be surprised. We can help each other just by listening. So yes, I'll have 3 more of these sharing tea, sharing hope. And please register online and we can send you more information and a chance to win gift card. Thank you so much, Chanlori. Thank you so much, Soup. Thank you, Mei Li, Polly.
I would just like to say that everybody is always going through some kind of battle internally. So I would just say, be kind to people around you, and that includes your own family. If you don't know anything about what your parents or your grandparents went through, it's time to document that. You need to give your parents the space, the healing to ask them, what did you go through? Create that space for your parents because they definitely are holding on to a lot. And it's very important, especially during the pandemic, to find out what is your release. What is something that you can do to feel like, letting go, to feel free.
Yeah, ខ្ញុំចង់និយាយភាសាខ្មែរ I want to add some if ចង់បានការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរ អូខេចង់បានសុខភាពល្អចង់បានឲ្យជីវិតបានតែប្រសើរគឺវាចាប់ផ្ដើមសកម្មភាពពីឥឡូវទៅដើម្បីបានសុខភាពល្អទៅចាប់ផ្ដើមសកម្មភាពមុនចាកម្រងចាំដល់ពេកចាំបានសុខភាពល្អហើយចាំធ្វើសកម្មភាពមុនអត់ធ្វើអត់បានទេតើយើងចាប់បានធ្វើសកម្មភាពមុនទើបបានសុខភាពល្អពេលក្រោយចាខ្ញុំសូមជម្រាបប៉ុណ្ណឹងចាសូមអរគុណជម្រាបលា Happy New Year សួស្តីឆ្នាំថ្មីសូមឆ្នាំថ្មីបានជោគជ័យគ្រប់គ្នា